All right, over to the Israel-Hamas war. The start of a short-term ceasefire between Israel and Hamas militants has been delayed until Friday. This, according to a top Israeli official. Moreover, according to sources, Israel's Mossad director, David Barnea, has arrived in Doha to meet the Qatari Prime Minister and other officials to discuss the final details of the deal. While the Israeli Prime Minister says he has directed his intelligence agency Mossad to act against the heads of Hamas militants no matter where they are. The first truce in a near 7-week-long war, reached after mediation by Qatar, was hailed around the world as a sign of progress that could ease the suffering of civilians in Gaza and bring more Israeli captives home. But according to Israel's National Security Council director, the contracts on the release of hostages are advancing and continuing constantly. He further added that the start of the release will take place according to the original agreement between the sides, which will quote-unquote not be before Friday. They had earlier said it will, or it may start on Thursday. Now it has been postponed to Friday. Again, there is no confirmation on this either. Israel's National Security Council director's statement comes hours after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a press conference late on Wednesday. However, Netanyahu did not make a mention of a potential delay in implementation of the agreement during the press conference. According to reports, the release of hostages along with a 4-day ceasefire was originally set to begin on Thursday morning. The breakthrough deal was agreed between Israel and Hamas to let aid into Gaza and facilitate the release of at least 50 hostages held by Hamas militants in exchange for at least 150 Palestinians jailed in Israel. But according to the spokesperson for Israel's National Security Council, they have stressed that the delay does not indicate the deal is in peril. Although various Gazans do not feel the same way about the deal, they have expressed mistrust of the planned truce between Israel and Hamas militants.
هدنة كذابة هذه كلها بيعملوها بعدين بكذب الشعب بخلوه يطلع واللي بقصف واللي بضرب واللي بخبط بتزبطش هيك مش حياة هذه احنا ما تعودنا على هيك اولادنا صاروا يجروا من غير وعي حرام عليهم حرام على اللي بصير الشيك في الشعب حرام
هدنة فاشلة هدنة كذابة قالوا لنا هدنة وهنا طلعوا الأولاد امبارح لعبوا في الشارع هانك فوتبول وكورة وانبسطوا صبحوا الصبح في شو الصبح في الليل الساعة 10 لقينا القصف وين الهدنة أنا بدي إياه هدنة وقف إطلاق نار يا إما خلاص بديش هدنة كده 100.
Now, with the delay in the agreement between Israel and Hamas militants, Israel's chief military spokesperson has said that the war in Gaza will continue until the ceasefire brokered between the two sides will start.
אנחנו קיימנו היום שיח של הרמטכ"ל עם כל מפקדי החטיבות. אני גם לא יודע מתי תיכנס הפסקת אש. אנחנו נהיה ערוכים לעשות כל מה שצריך כרגע. אנחנו מתמקדים במלחמה. מה שעשינו היום זה לחשוף מנהרות של חמאס ולהשמיד אותם. זה גם מה שאנחנו הולכים לעשות בשעות הקרובות ונמשיך לעשות עד שיגיע שלב שצריך לעצור בו.
All right, for more on this, we are joined by Alon Burstein from California. He is a visiting assistant professor and an Israel Institute fellow at University of California, Irvine. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Mr. Burstein, let's start from here. From Thursday, it has now been delayed to Friday. Even Friday, there is no confirmation on that either. There's no certainty of this. Now, reports suggest there was a 24-hour delay as the deal was not signed by Qatar and Hamas. Are there more negotiations still going on? What do you feel about this?
So according to the different reports, what the part that's missing is the exact mechanism through which Hamas is going to release the hostages. Hamas in the past released the hostages to the Red Cross, but at this time Israel had not fully invaded the north of the Gaza Strip. According to the initial reports, Hamas was going to release the hostages through the Rafah crossing, through Egypt. They would then be transferred to Israel. Only after Israel verifies their identity will Israel release Palestinian hostages. Right now, that seems to be stuck. It's unclear what's going to be what the delay is, if there's a problem with the transfer to the Red Cross or if Hamas is insisting on changing the terms of the deal. But that is the one part that's still being negotiated. Otherwise, no one's contesting the terms of the deal except for the mechanism of release.
Now, the region is extremely volatile. The war will continue. That has been made clear. And there are, of course, reports of the fact that Hamas will try to restart its attack on Israel as well. And there is a slight concern regarding the effects that this delay, or this pause can have on the ongoing war. The war will continue. That Israel has made clear. Do you feel Hamas will gain some kind of advantage here for a counter?
Hamas desperately needs this pause in the war. If we compare what Hamas is now willing to give in this deal as opposed to what it was willing to give on October 8th, we can see that they're in a dire state. And they really need a pause in the war in order to regroup, in order to rebuild themselves. And they also need the release of some Palestinian prisoners in order to somehow justify to the Gazans why did they launch the campaign on October 7th? Look, here they're gaining something. So they are going to gain something through a pause in the war and through the release of some Palestinian prisoners. However, right now, as you said, there is a lot of fear because the situation is extremely volatile. Until the pause is actually declared, anything can happen. Israel today carried out substantial artillery fire in the eastern parts of Khan Yunis, that is a town in the southern parts of the Gaza Strip. Any kind of misfire that will all of a sudden either hit a hospital or hit a school is going to cause another eruption and possibly delay the deal further. So yes, every minute counts in terms of making sure the deal goes through. But at the same time, both sides right now have an interest in the deal going through. Both sides are under heavy pressure from their populations to show some gains in terms of releasing prisoners or releasing hostages. So both sides want it to go through, but every minute makes it more dangerous.
Now, Mr. Bernstein, now this delay also underscores the fluidity of the negotiations. Is nothing certain until we actually see the hostages released from the two sides? Hostages from Hamas and the prisoners in Israel. I correct myself there.
Absolutely. It's the situation is always very volatile and nothing's certain, and no sides trust each other, right? Hamas does not recognize Israel's right to exist. Israel does not speak to Hamas. It's a terror group as far as Israel is concerned. They're not even negotiating with each other. Hamas is negotiating with Qatar. Israel is negotiating through Egypt and the United States with Qatar, also with some statements with Qatar directly. But the two sides have zero trust towards one another. Usually in the past, once a terror group is willing to negotiate the release of hostages, this is not just in the Middle East. The same goes in the Philippines, the same goes in Sri Lanka, the same goes in Nigeria. Usually when a terror group is willing to come to a deal about release of hostages, they come through. They come through because they want more deals later on. But only once the deal actually starts do they at least usually release who they say they're going to release. Until then, as you say, nothing is certain. Nothing is certain. Israel, as you said, the Mossad is been ordered to try to assassinate the heads of Hamas. Israel said that it wants to assassinate the leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, Yahya Sinwar. If it manages to do that in the next 24 hours, the deal is likely over. So nothing is certain until we see the hostages actually being released and Palestinian prisoners being released. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for your time, Mr. Alan Bernstein. I can make out it's later in the day for you. And thank you so much for coming on board later in the night. And I would love to have you back on WION World is One later for your insights.
Thank you. Have a good day.